Administrator, a new request awaits your attention.
Welcome back to Ixion. My name is Nilaus and this is a build guide. And this video is not, it's going to be taking a little break from my Let's Play and focusing on a sector design. And I'm going to be delivering more of these optimized sector designs if there is an interest for it. This one is going to be a food sector. So with this food sector, once you build it, by the time you build it initially, you will have enough food for 1,800 people, which is more than what you have by the time you build your first food sector. It's going to be used to crop farming. And when everything is fully upgraded, it can feed 6,000 people. So you definitely don't have a problem with this. You basically, once you build this, you don't have to worry about any kind of any more food for your population at all, ever in the game. You can even start being very generous and get extra stability by overfeeding them so they are fat and happy. So that is pretty damn awesome. What I'm going to do here is I have a layout, and the layout that I'm following is available on my Discord. I'm also sort of continuously updating these designs for different sectors. These are available in an Excel sheet, and the Excel sheet is available to Patreon supporters together with the save files. So if you are supporting on Patreon, you get access to all these things. But you can also just find a picture of it in Discord, which should be linked in the description below, if I remember, so that you can just have a look at it yourself and build accordingly in your own base. Now, the first thing we obviously have to do is just claim all of the resources here, build the first initial ones. The first 4 buildings are always the same. You just have to build those. And I try to make sure that I build them in a location where they are as least obstructive to the final design as possible. Now, this part I'm building here is part of the final design. I will have 4 locations down here. And those will be for storage, small storage, and we'll just have some few things because you do need building materials all the time. Meantime, just going out there, claiming all of these. What is it? Let's call it horizontal line is also going to be my main area for build. You can see up here in the top, I have indicated sort of specific areas for what I want. Now, the next thing we want to do as we get the storage up, we want to get our housing in, or people storage, as fast as possible, because we currently have homeless, and even though they get a +10 stability bonus for opening a new sector, that won't last forever. So we need to make sure that we get housing, we get food, we get infirmary up and running as fast as possible. And those are some of the challenges, and not before we have the housing done, can we actually start transferring people in. So you can see here, as soon as we have the storage, then I start transferring from the other sectors into the sections so that I have enough for continuously building. Another good idea about generally in terms of build is if you are building an entirely new sector, you can build 2 of the workshops, because then there are twice as many little worker drones moving goods, and that's why what I'm doing here. The one at the bottom is the one that I'm going to keep, and the one in sort of in the middle is the one that I just have was the initial one I built, and I'll remove it when I need it later on. But 2 workshops is great for building faster once you have a new zone that you want to build up. You can always delete it at the end. We plop down our second storage. I'm using the domotic, but if you only have what is it called? The optimized quarter, that's perfectly fine. You can upgrade to domotic later on. And it's just the good housing as soon as possible. Then I have, I'm also using the cell housing, because you can use cell housing up to 50%. They're cheaper and they house a lot more people. And as long as you have less than 50% in cell housing, it doesn't affect your happiness. So just make sure that you build your domotic or optimized before you build the cell housing. Then it shouldn't be a problem with happiness. And you can always check if they're unhappy. That's probably because they filled up in the cell housing before they filled up in the optimized. And then what you can do is just issue a deconstruct order for the cell housing. Then they will automatically remove themselves, and then you can cancel the deconstruction order at that point. Now I'm going to continue to building these housing. Once everything is upgrading, each of these domotic housing can house 118. But I remember at the time you build this, you probably have the optimized, and they can have 52. So you definitely want to make sure that you have 2 of those built before you build the first cell housing. Then I built the DLS center. The DLS is super important. This is going to give us happiness. And now finally we have room to build up here under the sector 4 signal. I have room for building my infirmary. It's a bit late that I built infirmary, but I needed to get the trash out of the way to get the infirmary in place. Now we also have the opportunity to sort of make the main room, main part, the whole area in the middle, is going to be the main part of our build area, and then with the supporting buildings outside. I'm going to try to sort of include everything into this. In here we are now in a position, because we have enough storage, human storage, to transfer workers over, and they're going to be needed because we start needing to start working on more industry, and we don't want to get them into overworked whenever a new industry pops online. So make sure that you build the housing, transfer the workers over, and then once you have the workers over, then you can start working on the next part. You can also, once you have a lot more housing, you can start transferring over non-workers, just to get sort of those alternate life milestones if you have those unlocked, like the 400 plus 1 stability, 800 plus 1 stability if you have those. That's something I use for just using non-workers to fill up in order to reach those thresholds. Now we're basically getting having a few things. As soon as we have the DLS, we are going to set it up to extreme propaganda. That is going to be necessary. We will also use other methods as well, but the extreme propaganda is just to make sure that we never get into stability issues in this region. Depending on how far you're in the campaign, it's really important to make sure we have this. And then we have some small drones flying in from another sector, interestingly enough. This will be designed towards late game, but it will be sort of built so you can build it early game. There will be some buildings that you probably don't have access to, and you can either build something else there. For example, the fire station. You don't need to build this. You can build 2 houses, or you can leave it empty in the beginning, or you can do something else. I just make sure that I have room for a fire station. I always leave the fire station off, because you can just switch it on when you need it. Now I built another mess hall, and I do that because I actually need to remove the mess hall that I have in the middle. And I'm also now removing the initial storage, because I need to have this clean area in the middle. I need that to be available for what we're actually building, because we're building a crop farm here, and we need a big space for it. So I built some infrastructure before. I'm just putting these cell housing in. I'm not going to be enabling them, because first of all, I don't want them housing to be built there, or I don't want them to be built in those yet. And then we can build more of the domotic, and I'm also pausing those because I don't want them built right now. I just want to indicate to you that this is how I use the space. We will build all of it, of course, as soon as we have the new mess hall built. We can remove the old mess hall, and then we now finally have room in the middle here. I'm also going to move the other workshop, and I do prefer to have 2 workshops while building a new sector. So I'm just going to build a temporary extra workshop. I'm sure we're now at almost 400, and as soon as we have the alternate life, we got the population transfer to get us over 400, and then we get an extra +1 stability. So now we have +4 stability, 2 for the alternate life and 2 for the DLS, which should keep us happy. Now let's build some industry. This is the fusion power making water from ice, and they have to be built in the same area as you use the water, because water cannot be transferred. Very, very late game, you also have the opportunity to use waste to generate water, but that's very late game, and this is not going to be late game. You might also be looking at these fusion and go like, hey, you don't need 2, and well, actually you do need 2 unless you have some upgrades, and those upgrades are definitely not the best upgrades to get. So unless you focus on those upgrades in order to save one of these fusion powers, you are going to need 2 fusion powers to get enough water to feed all of this. You can also just in this case, as I've done here, I've set the other one of them to unpowered and the other one to powered, because of course you don't need it immediately. Now we have another one, and then we are going to set intense working hours. We are also going to use waste. I'm just setting intense working hours here because I don't have any problems with stability, because we have everyone working, only living in domotic housing, so that's pretty damn good. If you don't have the medium storage here, then just use small storage and then try to upgrade them later on. This is just to make sure that we have a good storage in this location for all of the food that we are definitely going to generate. And then we have ice, of course, needs to be available as well for this, and you want to have the ice close to the fusion power as well and we are now deleting one of the workshops and building another extra workshop down here. So now we have all of the area in the middle available for building. We have placed the crop farm things. What we need to do now is also make sure that we get ice in. I'm making sure that we get our ice production built as fast as possible, so that when the farms actually start, there will be some water for us. Now we can start working on the farms, and as you so happens, it is just an absolute perfect fit right here. They can have 9 times 4x4, and that fits exactly 12 by 12 tiles, and then you can build it such as I'm doing it here, and it gives a really nice view for all of this. And then that gives us a total of 4 full farms, with each of those with 9 of these tiles, 9 crop farms each. That is a lot of food coming in. It's obviously also a lot of power, which is something you have to be aware of. But again, if you build it, you don't have to, and you don't need it, then maybe don't only build half of it at the beginning. You can leave 2 of the farms idle. You can build them and then just leave them powered off if you don't want them. We are then going to be setting the next one, and that is going to be waste, because the farms produce a lot of waste. I did some calculations. It turns out that each of the farm is producing over a full cycle. If you actually consume all the food that is produced, it's producing 12 waste over a farming cycle. Not a game cycle, but sort of in the time that it produces all the farms. Now I'm putting in big batteries, and I'll also be putting a big battery here, 4 big batteries, because this is actually a very power intensive unit here. So 4 big batteries, tier 2 batteries. If you don't have tier 2 batteries, smash down some tier 1 batteries, that's fine. Tier 2 batteries are really good. Tier 3 batteries are obviously better, but 7x7 is such an uncomfortable number for me. I have very often seen things in terms of 10s. Here we have something that's more later game. This is my drone bay. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. It's 8x8. Make sure that I have room to have 8x8 for the drone bay, because in this case we are going to produce a lot of food, and the food needs to be transferred to other places. So it's nice to have a drone bay in this location. I'd actually want to have any sector that has sort of large input-outputs should have a drone bay. Probably every sector should have a drone bay when it really comes down to it. What I'm doing now is filling up with the more storage, human popsicles. Yes, thought popsicles, and I'm filling them over here just to fill up, both in terms of making sure that I have enough workers, but also getting additional. Right now I'm transferring workers because farms take a lot of workers, and then afterwards we will be topping up with non-workers, so that we get to the point where we have we get to the 800 milestone, and that 800 milestone will give us another +1 stability, if you have that upgrade to the alternate life facility, of course. We're going to be getting started to sort of see a bit of progress here. You can see they got angry, and that is just a lot of that's because they're living mainly in cell housing. This is something that sometimes happens depending on the sequence of what got built first and what got built sort of last. It's a bit annoying, but and you can't move them, you can't force them to go, because basically what I now have is some of the demotic housing, which is really good, is empty because they rather live in the cheap housing. Damn it, they need to live in the upstate. Look at those. It's basically like looking out at the demotic housing with a nice view of all the farms. I mean, what more could you wish for? And then we can do, for example, generous food if we want, or we can do the other one. Since we have so much food in this occasion, we can always just put in a process for just being generous with food, because hey, if we don't have enough food in this sector, there's definitely a problem. We need to move them over from the cell housing, and there are many ways of doing this. As I said earlier, the easiest one is just simply to deconstruct one of the cell housing to just sort of force them over. What I can also do is I can just transfer more people in here, because I'm at a bit shy of 600 and I need to get to 800. So if I just transfer 200 more in once I have the housing built, then I won't have a problem, because they'll be filling into the new housing instead. So it's just a matter of doing a population transfer of a lot of non-workers into our new zone. There. That should give us 100 more. Once those 100 comes in, then we should see that they will be filling up, and then they'll be filling up in the good housing, and then it will sort of shift the balance to be over and get the +3 happiness for a majority working in domotic quarters. And they should be coming in. If you have the trains, then they are being transferred really quickly, and they are now happy again. So that was a little way of fixing that. In the meantime, we can see that you need a lot of alloys to complete all of the builds for all of these things, and that's kind of one of the challenges. At this point now, we are just looking shy of the 800, so we'll be just transferring a little bit more non-workers into our region. Of course, that means we're stripping them out of other regions, but for this case, I want to be showing you that we get to 800. The maximum population of this setup when it's all fully upgraded is 1430. And you don't want to put more than 1400 into this sector, because at 1400 then you need, with full upgrades, you need one more mess hall. And I haven't made room for one more mess hall. So the maximum population capacity of this one is 1400. So I designed the population to be matching the max capacity of a mess hall with all upgrades. So that's just it's not sort of where you store all of your excess people, but on the other hand, 1400 should definitely be enough that you don't have any issues. Now at this point, we have built everything we want to build, pretty much, and the only thing we have remaining is putting in the last battery. These batteries, together with all the upgrades, give us 1440 power, and that means that this sector can now be powered for 5 cycles, fully operational on battery power once this is up and running. If you think that's too much, then don't build so many batteries, build something else instead. If you think that sounds awesome, because that is basically what you're going to need at some point to transfer those 500 or those 5 cycles for moving between zones, then you can build those for big batteries. They do take a lot of space, unfortunately, but hey, you got to prioritize what it is. As you get more upgrades, the housing takes less space, and it's a nice little corner that we use for housing. And then 1400, maybe you don't want to have 1400 capacity available, and then you can free up some other space for whatever you want, a park or something like that. This zone has everything that we would want. In this case, I can't really see anything that's missing, and once we have it, we also have the fire station up and running, so that if fires break out, we can respond to it. I hope this guide was useful to you. If it was, be sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already done that. I'll be making more guides for this game. I'll be making more Let's Play. I'll be making more guides for all sorts of other simulation logistics games that we so love here on the channel. If you want to go the extra mile, then I do have a Patreon, and I really appreciate anyone who is supporting there. It is kind of how I keep this channel running. In the description below and in Discord, there should be a picture of this design, so if you want to build it yourself and don't want to sort of scrub back and forth in a video to figure out where, what, and how, then you can just look at that design image. We don't have blueprints, but that's the closest thing we get to it. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take care and stay effective.